You're listening to a podcast of spurious morality. Hello and welcome to a podcast of spurious morality. I'm Johnstone, and with me this week I have Greg.
Hello, friends.
And I have Jimmy.
Hi, good to be back.
It is indeed. It means season by season is back. This is the first season by season of our fourth podcast series, which is quite exciting. So we left Spodcast Series 3 on our discussion of the twin dilemma, which it's fair to say we didn't really like it, I think. But it's got a reputation. I think it deserves its reputation. I don't think either of you guys disagreed with that. So we were kind of left at the end of season 21 with a new unlikable Doctor, and as Greg pointed out, it's kind of like the series ends on, well, if you don't like it, screw you. We don't care. So we're moving into season 22 now, which I think it's a bit more divisive. I think that there's certainly more to the Sixth Doctor here than we saw in the Twin Dilemma, and he does settle down a little bit and become a little bit more likable. But I think one sort of common theme that we're going to discuss is how actually there's still problems with the way he's been written right the way through this, in various different ways for various different reasons. But we won't jump ahead. What we will do, though, is discuss what our favourite adventure from this season is. So the plan is we're going to cover 3 of them in this episode, and then we're going to do another episode where we talk about the latter 3 stories. But for the purposes of this conversation, out of the whole season, what would you say your favourite is? Greg, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think the best of the season is probably Revelation of the Daleks, but my favorite is and always has been the 2 Doctors, just because you basically get a bonus Patrick Troughton story in color right at the top, and then you get it actually like intertwines the 2 stories of both Doctors quite interestingly, and the Sontarans come back, and it's just a fun Robert Holmes adventure, and it's my favorite.
I think I'd have to agree with pretty much every word you said there, yeah. What about you, Jimmy?
It's hard to say because it's been a while since I last rewatched this season as a whole, and so I haven't actually rewatched the 2 Doctors yet. And usually I'm torn between it and Vengeance on Varos. So at the moment, I'd probably say Vengeance on Varos, but the 2 Doctors has in past been my favourite, so maybe it will be again. I'll have to decide then.
We'll pick that one up in part 2 then. But yeah, I'm with Greg. I think sort of taking that objective step back, Revelation is probably the best story here. But the 2 Doctors is just so much fun, and it's great, and like you say, is worth it for the kind of bonus Troughton story that is kind of in there as well. So yeah, I'm a big 2 Doctors fan. However, I do have a soft spot for the first story that we're going to discuss, which is Attack of the Cybermen. Maybe it's Attack of the Continuity references. I don't know, it goes a bit heavy, this one does. But I really like Attack of the Cybermen, mainly because it is the first ever Doctor Who that I saw. And it was a UK gold repeat in the late 90s. And it's Yeah, I don't think I saw the first part. I think it was only part 2 that I saw originally. But, like, maybe this explains why I like so much Doctor Who, because if Attack of the Cybermen Part 2 was enough to sort of convince 5, 6-year-old Johnstone that this was something he wanted to watch, then I guess I could put it with anything after that. So yeah, I have a lot of fun with Attack of the Cybermen, and it has its problems, and we've still sort of we're in this stage where even though at the end of the Twin Dilemma the Doctor said, "That's it, I'm fully stabilized now, this is me," a big chunk of the start of this story is taken up by Perry pointing out that actually the Doctor doesn't seem to have settled down post-regeneration yet. So I think that's perhaps not the best choice they could have made here, like carrying on with the whole grumpy Doctor thing. But nevertheless, it kind of goes into what is, I think, a pretty decent story. It's a dark story, like it's sort of a spiritual sequel to Resurrection of the Daleks, and it has Lytton pop up again, and it does seem to be very grumpy and angry and shouty and violent, and Lytton's now a sort of a London gangster, and he's got a little crew that are supposedly on a diamond heist, and we've got some pretty brutal deaths. Like, this is a story that really plays up to the whole Cybermen are insanely strong kind of thing. We've always known this about Cybermen. We've always known that they're sort of very strong and powerful. But this one, you kind of see the violent side of that. They hit people over the head to kill them. They punch their way through doors and hatches and all sorts, and they crush Lytton's hands. That's a dark scene. That is a nasty, nasty scene. Like, they don't hold back. We get blood as Lytton's hands are crushed. It's a nasty scene. So yeah, this is kind of very horrible, dark, gritty Cybermen, and I think it works. Like, I genuinely think this kind of thing does work for the Cybermen. We kind of get to see their nastier side. It's maybe not as finessed as Earthshock, but it's good. It works. It's effective, and it's sort of as a, like I say, sort of spiritual follow up to Resurrection of the Daleks. We're definitely sort of playing in the same sort of sandpit here. Um, so yeah, there's quite a lot to like in this one. It does go on a little bit. It does get a little less fun once the action switches to Telos. I'm not entirely convinced we needed the cyber controller to reappear here. Um, it's kind of interesting to kind of get a little bit more about Cyberman hierarchy, though. Um, so I guess there's a lot to enjoy, particularly if you're a Cyberman fan, which I am. I suppose the only other thing worth me mentioning before passing it over to you guys is 50-minute episodes now. So, or 45-minute episodes, I should say. This is sort of more akin to modern day Doctor Who, at least in terms of episode length. But whether whether it works as well in the 80s as it does sort of 2005 onwards, I guess is up for debate. I get the impression that the structure of the story changes quite a lot more than you think. It's not just the case of let's stick 2 episodes together and therefore you've got one long episode. It genuinely does sort of reformat how Doctor Who works. And one thing we get out of this, and it is present here, it's more present in sort of other stories we're going to discuss. But we get a lot of TARDIS scenes. There is a lot of the Doctor and Perry just arguing the toss in the TARDIS. And this doesn't feel like any kind of character development. Like, we had Tegan and the Fifth Doctor arguing in the TARDIS quite a bit, but never this much. And it genuinely felt like it was, at least to some extent, developing the Fifth Doctor and Tegan's characters, particularly Tegan's character, I guess. That's not so much present here. So it certainly starts in Attack of the Cybermen, but there's at least 2 stories that I can think of in this season that are considerably worse for it, but I'm going to get it in early. Anyway, Greg, do you want to talk to us about Attack of the Cybermen? I'm guessing that you guys are probably not as big a fans of it as I am, but let's find out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a story I enjoyed, especially when I was a kid, too, but I there's just so many flaws here. And yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one is just how relentlessly dark and grim the story is. And it's not that I don't think Doctor Who can be dark. I mean, that there are great dark Doctor Who stories. That's not my point at all. It's just this one is positively reveling in it. I mean, it you mentioned the scene with Lytton having his hands crushed. Well, the Cybermen like grab him, force him to his knees, grab his fists, start to squeeze, he starts screaming, and then it cuts away. And that's what Doctor Who always does, right? And then it cuts back just so you can see blood pouring down his arms. It's like, why? What are you doing this for? Who is this for? The it's another, gruesome Eric Sayward story, even though it's credited to Paul and Moore, and it's lots of, the Cybermen when they die, they're shooting out weird juices and flames and sparks, and pretty much the entire supporting cast is dead by the end. Um, you mentioned that, like, the story shows how strong the Cybermen are, like, punching through walls and so forth, and that's true, but it also shows that, like, you shoot one once or twice with a pistol and it's dead, which is kind of an odd juxtaposition against the obvious power that they have. Um, that certainly makes them much less intimidating to me, even if they're more physically imposing. And yes, the other big problem is that the they don't they're not making enough of an effort to start convincing you that perhaps this doctor is a character you should want to watch. Um, he's more stable here than Twin Dilemma, certainly, and he's not trying to murder his companion or anything, which is also a step up. But he's still rude, he's still grating, he's still dismissive. Perry visibly doesn't really like him that much. Um, and when the story comes to Earth, like in the chameleon circuit isn't working properly, yeah, it's funny, but at the same time, like, Perry's just mocking him for screwing it up, and it just feels kind of hostile in a way that, like, doctor companion relationships really haven't. I know this does improve as things go on and, as soon as the next story even, but yeah, I think that the shift to 45 minutes was a big driver for that because of the just unnecessarily long TARDIS scenes at the beginning. Like, you just you don't need that. Like, you don't need to show a static photo of Halley's Comet or Halley's Comet, whatever it is, and have Perry, "Oh, doctor, I'm scared." Why? It's just it's there. It's not, like, headed straight fit. I don't know. It's extraneous padding, and, you say it's up for debate whether the 1985 season or the modern series does 45-minute episodes better. I don't think it's up for debate, really. I think the modern series does it much better. Um, but, I mean, it is an interesting format. It's nice to not have a cliffhanger, crowbarred in every 25 minutes, because for every great cliffhanger in classic Doctor Who, there's two just baffling ones. All that being said, I mean, the story itself, it's convoluted unnecessarily so. It like, trying to tie things together with Telos is kind of weird. I mean, there's some great imagery there, like the messed up Cybermen and the tombs punching their way out and attacking people. Like, that's neat, that's cool. I mean, that might be worth the price of admission to Telos alone. But then there's other stuff like the 2 guys trying to make their escape from the planet, which is just an entirely cynical attempt by the writer just to, like, mechanically move other pieces of the story around, because they're just unceremoniously killed off. Like, that story goes nowhere. They get to where they're going, "Oops, the Cybermen are already here. Oops, we're dead. The end. Oh, great. Well done." It's yeah, and again, it's just all part of that cynical, grim feeling that Eric Sayward really wants to put across, but that I think is just not compatible with what we know of as Doctor Who, really. And without, someone like Robert Holmes writing a grim story like Caves of Androzani, it's tough to pull this off. Now, Sayward does a better job of it, later in the season with Revelation of the Daleks, but yeah, I think that there's good stuff here. There's some, entertainment to be had. Certainly, it's not a god awful story. Like the production is halfway decent for what it is. It's just kind of icky, and I didn't come away from this story feeling good about myself, let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's not a Doctor Who story to put on when you need to cheer yourself up, certainly. I am, by the way, in complete agreement with you that post 2005 Doctor Who does longer episodes much better. I was kind of saying it's up for debate whether it actually works well here or not. It does work well post 2005. I'm not convinced it works particularly well in 1985. Jimmy, go ahead.
Yeah, this one is, I think, pretty much terrible. It's the Six and Perry dynamic barely has improved since the Twin Dilemma. They're still bickering and arguing and not liking each other at all. The Cybermen are handled badly. David Banks' voice is okay, but the others sound terrible. And the couple of completely black Cybermen is just such a silly idea. Oh, it's a stealth Cyberman or whatever. What? Why? Yeah, no, that was nonsense. And then you've got the Cybermen getting time travel out of nowhere. It's like, oh yeah, we stole this time machine. Okay, from who? From how? What? And it's just thrown in for no reason at all, and so that they can make a reference to Mondas and the 10th planet, but they don't do anything with it. And then when the Doctor and Perry turn the tables on one of the cops, and I forget the exact wording, but as my notes say here, casually, the Doctor asks Perry to blow the cop's brains out. I mean, it's like, obviously he knows she's not going to do it, and he's not saying in so many words, but I mean, that's very dark. And then they've got so many continuity references, and yet they throw in this thing about Telos being the Cybermen's home planet. And I mean, yeah, in literally the next scene, the Doctor's saying, no, it wasn't their home planet, Mondas was, but it's like, okay, so why did you have the Cybermen themselves say it is their home planet like 2 minutes before? And then you've got the Cryons again, like coming out of nowhere, like it's just like, oh yeah, Telos had these natives, here they are, oh, and they're all going to die anyway. And it's like, why? What, like you've thrown in so many continuity references to things that actually happened, and then you just pull something like this out your butt. It's like, what's going on? And even the TARDIS going back to normal, it's like they have to point out, oh, I'm fixing it, and oh, it can disguise itself again. And then in the final episode, the last time it appears, it's like, oh, okay, and it's a police box again, and it's just like completely unmentioned. It's like, if you're going to have it the chameleon circuit suddenly working and explain all this and go to all this trouble, then you can't just fudge it and put it back to normal and say nothing about it. Like you've got to at least have a reason or do something. And then you've got the whole ending shootout and it's terrible. And listen is the most frustrating thing is at the end when the Doctor's like, oh, I completely misjudged him. He was clearly actually good all along. And it's like, okay, he was working for the Cryons and doing something good this time. Have you forgotten that resurrection happened? Have you forgotten that he nearly killed Tegan? Have you forgotten that him and his guards casually killed bloody random people just to stop Tegan escaping? Like, how is Lytton the good guy in this? What the fucking hell are you talking about? I mean, it's complete nonsense. Like, I think the whole story is basically garbage, to be honest. I mean, the only thing that kind of worked for me was like the bit you said about crushing the guy's hands and being a bit more like, it makes the Cybermen look a bit more powerful to actually show something like that, or not show it, but to go as far as they did. But even so, it's like pretty much everything about the story is terrible. I just, yeah, do not like this one at all.
The Lytton thing's weird, and I actually like that Lytton came back. I like that there is a sort of conclusion to his story and all that kind of thing. And I pretty much like the way he is at least established at the start of this one. Like Lytton at the end of Resurrection of the Daleks was trapped on Earth, sort of impersonating a police officer. Here we are, a couple of years, I don't know, a year, couple of years, whatever later, and he's he's basically built himself up as a bit of a gangster, and he's sort of found his way into the criminal underworld, and obviously he's smart and he's an alien and he knows more than anybody else and all that kind of thing. I really like where this story places him. Like, it is a logical progression from Resurrection, but then he seems to be like, no, that was a bluff. That was a double bluff. We were never really doing this. Terry Malloy's character was never meant to survive. And it's like, what? What's, yeah, okay. Working for the Crayons, sure. Um, it's, yeah, it starts better than it finishes. I kind of like the Doctor's regret over misjudging him within the context of this story. But you're absolutely right. He was a total scumbag in Resurrection, and for a good chunk of this. Um, but I like the character. I think Litton's a great character. I think sort of it's a nice little thread that connects the fifth and sixth Doctor eras as well. Like how the two Doctor, I mean, the fifth Doctor barely actually meets him, but how the two Doctors sort of react to him and treat him so differently. It's actually quite a good way of establishing the sixth Doctor. But this is the second sixth Doctor story that ends on a note of, I'm the Doctor and I'm not particularly great. Never mind. So we'll move on, and we'll move on to uh, certainly a more confident, competent, take your pick story. It's Vengeance on Varos, which I particularly like. I think there's a lot to enjoy here. This is it's again, it's quite a bit darker. It's a much darker tone than anything we've had outside of this season. It's pretty grim. It's people getting tortured and murdered on telly, kind of playing into the whole 80s video nasty thing. There are some good performances in this. There are some camp as hell performances in this. It does seem to be all over the place, but for some reason, like, the actors that play it straight are absolutely right to do so, and the actors that camp it up are absolutely right to do so. It's just this weird mesh of styles that actually works. I love the two, like the old couple that basically hate each other, who are just watching what's going on telly. They're completely disconnected from the rest of the plot, and they're kind of doing Gogglebox 25 years early. I think it works really, really well. It's a clever idea. It places the Doctor, well, it eventually places the Doctor and Perry into a sort of really grim, disturbing alien environment. It's full of sort of wild concepts, and we've got everything from plants that kill you the moment you touch them to a society that feeds off this stuff, loves this stuff, functions around this stuff. A society that executes a failed governor. And, as we record this, I'm fairly sure some Americans are a little bit unhappy with what the president's been up to over the last few days. So it's full of really kind of big, brave, wonderful, not quite Doctor Who ideas. And in the middle of it all, we have a very, very un-Doctor Who-ish villain, actually, in the form of Syl. Syl is arguably Doctor Who's greatest creation in the 80s, maybe. I'm struggling to think of more off the top of my head, but Syl's a great villain. Like, I'm really
Fenric,
glad
sorry,
Syl.
but Fenric, come on.
No, all right, yeah, no, fair play. That's a fair shout, but we're a few seasons off that, yeah. Um, but yeah, Syl's a great villain. Syl is an absolutely fantastic villain, and he's just like a capitalist douchebag. And we've had capitalist douchebag because we had one last season with Morgus in Caves of Androzani. But Syl is such a grotesque, larger than life character. It just works so well. Like, Doctor Who doesn't do grotesque particularly well, usually due to budget limitations, but sort of Syl is just wonderfully written, wonderfully devised, wonderfully cast, and is genuinely, just a fantastic Doctor Who villain. And I'm very glad Syl does come back in Trial. Maybe it's a case of diminishing return, but yeah, I like Syl. and this this story is better for him, even though he's not really the main villain of the whole thing. He's just kind of there doing things in the background and looking after himself. But really, he's not responsible particularly for what's going on Varos, not to a huge extent anyway. Um, so it's a curious one. Obviously, in the segment of trial that Sill's in, like he's basically the main villain. This is Sill is the villain. But in this, he's just another element that's there, like the couple that are watching along on the screen and all that kind of thing. And I'm a big fan of it, like this kind of incidental villain, I guess. So I will hand over to Greg now. Talk to us about Vengeance on Varos.
I'll pick up with the Sill thing. I mean, he's not himself the villain. No, I mean, he's just a functionary at the company that he's representing, but the company is definitely a villain in the story. I mean, the whole idea is that Veros is in the system that it's in because they're running out of food, they're running out of money, and all of this is because the company is paying them artificially low prices for their only export, just because, they can levy the threat of force behind it. I mean, it's kind of a not too subtle parallel to some of the things the United States was doing in Latin America right around the same time. And some of the things the U.S. might be doing in Latin America right now. By the way, I I I I don't know that direct democracy is always a great idea, but, the fact that you can directly vote against a governor's policies and perhaps inflict punishment on said governor by casting said votes, that is appealing to me for some reason right now. I don't know why. Anyway, I think overall Vengeance on Varos is a very good story. It's whiplash from Attack of the Cybermen because while it is grim, as is most of this season, it it doesn't revel in it the way that Attack of the Cybermen did. It's not lurid. It's not, in some of the colors and, set designs are, but it's not as in your face about it, I suppose. It's, it's a smart story. I mean, pretty much everything going on functions as an allegory on one level or another. I mean, yeah, there's the video nasty thing. Um, there's debates on how good, how directly answerable should the leader be to the people? Are the people worthy of making decisions like this, or is the will of the people just random and, capricious? The governor, I think, is a very interesting character. I mean, Martin Jarvis is a great performance, but also just he's not a great guy. Like, he has some bad impulses too. Like, no one in the government is particularly heroic, but he at least has like a moral core that some of the others lack. And so he's a character that we root for, sometimes even in spite of ourselves. Syl is a fantastic character. And so much is just the performance because, like you said, it's not so much that Syl is just an intense devoted capitalist, because we've had those before. It's that he revels in it and revels in his own. He knows he's off-putting to people and he leans into it, and that laugh is just iconic. Like, it's such a great and memorable character. Yeah, I mean, overall, this is good. There's parts that, don't work as well. Like, they start to turn Barry into a bird and then turn her back. It's like, okay, sure, that I suppose that happened. Yes, something Philip Martin is obsessed with, by the way, and it comes back in Mind Warp, and it comes back in Big Finish. Like, let's turn the Doctor's companion into various animals. Okay, but No, I mean, it's just it's nice to have a story that's about something. It's nice to have a story that's actually making a point and is, like, thematically coherent and is all built towards that. And it's nice to have a story with a clear and comprehensible plot that doesn't have 58 different subplots that don't make any sense. And really the biggest weakness here is the extensive TARDIS scenes at the beginning. And, I watched the Blu-ray extended edition for this review, and all I can say is I understand why they released it the way they did, and it wasn't just because of the runtime. Like, in the extended version, like, the broadcast version has a perfect ending, What do we do now that the TV doesn't work? And then just zooming in on the staticky television credits. Great. In the extended version, we then cut back to the TARDIS to watch the Doctor and Perry bicker at each other for another 5 minutes. Oh my god, who even thought that was a good idea right from the start? And I'm very happy it got broadcast the way that it did. So yeah, this is I think there's a lot of whiplash in season 22. I think you've got 3 really good stories and then 3 stories that aren't, and this is the first really good one.
It's definitely in the top half of the season, I agree with you. It's certainly one of the more stronger entries. Uh, Jimmy, talk to us about Veros then.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge improvement over the last two stories. That's the most important thing. Syl is an amazing villain, such a great performance, brilliant costume design. It's like everything with him works. The opening Six and Perry scenes with their dynamic continuing to be awful and they're arguing, and Six where he thinks he can't pilot the TARDIS anywhere and he just gets into this depressed mood, and it's just so it's so frustrating. Like there's potential there. Like things get better when he gets out of the depressed mood and Perry convinces him to try, and he's like, oh, you can't give up hope to her, and it's a bit, um bit cheesy that he's sort of trying to blame it on her, but you can see the dynamic has potential here, which you couldn't really in the last two stories. And the actual Varos parts of the stories is so much better in that portion. It's like it's good when the Doctor and Perry finally get there, but I think it works well that they developed things beforehand and all that. Um, yeah, there are faults, of course. Like this weird thing when they're saying how they're going to kill the rebel, and they say, oh, the pulses are random and you don't know how long it's going to be before he dies, and then a few minutes later they have a countdown on the screen when he's about to be killed, and it's like, you just said 5 minutes ago that you don't know how long it's going to take, and now you've got a countdown. What's going on there? And then at another part, still talking about the Zyphron 7 and how everyone needs the ore for space-time travel, and it's like, is time travel so common that it's just like, oh yeah, everyone needs this for time travel? I mean, like, how do you know that? What? Like, is time travel that common? It's really weird. Um, and they also make this big thing of the death for the rebel. It's going to be super horrible, and everyone's going to be interested to watch it. And then when the Doctor and Perry turn the gun on one of the random guards, it hits him, and 2 seconds later he just completely vanishes. It's like, that's a bit anticlimactic. You're like, it's going to be this horrible, bizarre fate, and it's going to be absolutely shocking to the viewers, and it's just like, click, gone. It's, yeah, really weird. I did like the cliffhanger. I think they did a really good job tying it into the story and having it be, oh yeah, and we'll cut now. Like, that was very good. They did very well there. But yeah, other things not so good, like the Doctor's line when the guards fall in the acid bath. I mean, I know a lot of people have complained, oh, the Doctor wouldn't do that, and it's like, well, no, the one guard knocked the other, and then the other pulled one in. But the Doctor does make the smug line about "forgive me if I won't join you," and it's just like, that's a bit like, why? It's just sort of cynical, and yeah, it doesn't really work. And the other thing is when they're running through the sort of death penalty area of the prison, what's with the old guys in nappies? Like, okay, there's these cannibal old men who have been eating the dead people and they look like that. What on earth is going on? It's, yeah, it's really weird. But going back to the good stuff, I think the governor is brilliantly played. I think the bit when he uses Syl's own words to be like, oh, well, now I don't have to accept your awful offer that the people that have to, so thanks, and Syl getting frustrated. And I love the bit when the governor's about to be voted on for the last time and he thinks he's going to die and he's still trying to save Perrin. He's like, you know, let us escape. No, okay, let her escape. Or can you at least, you know, shoot me rather than let me go through this and whatever. And it's just like the fact that he's still making an effort for Perry, even though he doesn't really believe her or like her or whatever, he's still, you know, got a bit of sympathy. That was very nice. But yeah, and then you get that simple ending of, oh, and the people won't know what to do with freedom. What do we do now? It's just like, it is very dark. I think it handles its darkness better than the previous stories, and handles Six and Perry's dynamic a bit better than the previous stories. But it's always been one of my favorites of the season, but I don't think I enjoyed it as much this time as I have on previous viewings. So that's why I'm not sure whether I'll pick it or the Two Doctors overall for my favorite, but it's definitely my favorite of this half of the season. It's a good story. It's definitely better than the previous ones, and it's good to see Six and Perry finally working together a bit better. But yeah, not perfect, but definite improvement. That's the main thing, and that's the positive out of it.
One thing I am going to call this story out for is I think it's the debut of that absolutely atrocious blue chair in the TARDIS, which also I think it pops up in Two Doctors as well. Like, what is that? That's the worst 80s crime Doctor Who ever committed. Apart from maybe the Twin Dilemma and Time Lash and Time Fly. You get the idea. All right, let's move on to our third and final story of today then. It's The Mark of the Rani, which it's an interesting one because it does Time Lord villainy quite well through the Rani, and then it does Time Lord villainy absolutely bloody terribly through the Master. Like, he doesn't need to be there. It's kind of like, oh, we need to get Anthony into a story this series. It might as well be this one. There's another Time Lord there anyway. Let's chuck him in. That being said, I do quite like the sort of Master and Rani double act that we get in the second part. They sort of team up and become evil Time Lords together, sort of connected simply by the fact that they're evil and they don't like the Doctor. It's a fun idea and it kind of works. We get a good historical setting. Like, it's nice to have a proper historical setting, and it looks really, really good. Like, they did some really, really strong location filming with this one, and as a result, they actually do quite a good job of getting the era. I think this is the first time that the Sixth Doctor's costume has really been a problem. And it seems to be that they thought the same because they have him, like, disguise himself, but he's still got his spangly yellow trousers on under this disguise. And it looks ridiculous. It doesn't work. And the Doctor would not disguise himself in such a shoddy way when entering somewhere he knows is dodgy. I don't think he's quite cottoned on that it's a Time Lord yet, but he'd do better than that. He'd get rid of the yellow spangly trousers. The Rani's a good character. The Rani's a really good creation. Like, we've had a lot of evil Time Lords. Like, the Master is obviously just like your default. We need a Time Lord that's going to be a bad guy this week. Okay, fine, great, that works. Then we have, you know, characters like the Monk who seem to serve a purpose. Like, the Monk's thing is obviously messing with history a bit. Well, the Rani's it's interesting because she's a scientist with not much in the way of ethics. You know, she sees all lesser species as lab rats and all that kind of thing, and she's quite happy to experiment on humans. And, like, we do experiment on animals, we do experiment on species that we consider to be lesser than ourselves. It's a thing we humans do. So there's quite a good logic there. There's actually quite a good logic in a lot of the stuff that Pip and Jane Baker do. I think it's more of an execution thing. Um, there's definitely an argument for this being Pip and Jane Baker's best. I think my favourite of theirs is Terror of the Vervoids for reasons that I will discuss in a future season by season. But I think just in terms of like what they do, this is probably their best written story. And the Rani is a great creation. Like I really like what they do with her. Um, it could have been very easy to just create another master, whereas she's not. She has her own motivations and exists for a reason. And I kind of feel that that maybe wasn't understood as well as it could have been for the sort of most recent Doctor Who finale where she reappeared. We did kind of just demote her to Angry Time Lord, which I guess is a curse of all Time Lords being wiped out and all that. So yeah, I like this one. It's not the best in the season. I suspect it's probably actually in the lower three of the season. I think this is going to be one of the ones that Greg says isn't fantastic, which is fine. I get it. It's not top tier Doctor Who, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it does interesting things. It has interesting ideas. It introduces a really interesting character, and I think we actually get to see a different side of the Master here because of the Rani. I just don't think it's done very well. Like, the Master does not work well as sidekick. That is not the Master's role. And, you know, it's... He dresses up as a scarecrow. Like, he literally stands in a field as a scarecrow waiting for the Doctor and Perry to turn up. Like, why? What? What's going on? What's the point? Anyway, I'll not rant too far about that, and I will pass over to Greg instead. So talk to us about the Mark of the Rani.
Yeah, I have that same view of why, what are you doing, except it's pretty much for the entire story. I d I do agree with you. Yeah, it's sorry, it is. It's like, I do agree with you that the Rani is a really cool creation. She's, I like what you talked about, how she's, not just a straight up, mustache twirling villain, right? She's a scientist. She's just there on Earth to perform her experiments to accomplish something different back on the planet she's working off of, and she doesn't care at all about the Doctor or the Master, thinks their rivalry is stupid, thinks they're stupid, and just wants to be left alone to do her experiments. Now the experiments are awful because they're being, just conducted with absolutely no concern for, the health or safety or lives of the people she's experimenting on. And so, yeah, I mean, yes, the Doctor feels he needs to stop her, but like it's an interesting take on a Time Lord character that isn't just another villain. And for, that I think the story benefits, and I think Kate O'Mara is really good in the role too. I mean, she's good in Time in the Rani, but that's a much I don't know, we'll get to that when it happens. Um, the problem that I have with this story is that just it that none of it makes much sense, really. Like, okay, so your central conflict is that the Rani is doing these experiments, and the experiments is causing uncontrollable rage in people, and that's fueling the Luddite, rebellion against technology. Okay, and we should stop the Rani from doing these experiments. All right, that's not much of a story, but fine. But then the Master shows up, and I cannot tell you what his plan is. I have no idea. It's he starts ranting about, like, getting all the great minds of the time together and then somehow taking over the world with, like, Isambard Kingdom Brunel. Like, are we gonna build bridges to play? I don't know. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. It makes absolutely no sense, and he doesn't even like, Anthony Ainley doesn't even seem to believe it when he's saying it. Like, it's just it's so unconvincing that the Ronnie is just mocking him for everything he says anyway. Like, it's impossible to take seriously. And yeah, he dresses up as a scarecrow, and honestly, like, my favorite part of that isn't the fact that he is standing in a field as a scarecrow for God knows how long waiting for the Doctor and Perry to show up. My favorite is the little shot later of him in the Scarecrow costume vaulting the gate. That is hilarious. And when you like, you don't know it's the Master at that point, but when you look back and realize that's the Master, like woo, like jumping over a gate, it is awesome, but not in a good way. It's awesome, like wow, this is bad. And yeah, like on the plus side, like, okay, the Doctor and Perry are, calming their relationship down a little bit here, and they're a little more playful with each other, which is nice. Perry is written as a complete moron in this story and just a helpless, whiny, like it's like really grating. And to see the character that we had in Caves of Androzani reduced to this is very sad. Like the Doctor doesn't really do much in the story, and like the other big problem is there's absolutely no sense of urgency here. Like everyone's running around this community for what? Like what's happened? What are we in such a hurry for? What are we trying to stop? We don't really even know. Like it's incomprehensible. And like you said, like Pip and Jane Baker, yeah, they have decent ideas, but the execution is, I mean, it's just awful. Like it's this isn't like Bob Baker, Dave Martin, where they have good ideas and they put them through in the script, and it's just we can't afford to realize this the way you want, guys. Like, no, this is a good idea that's then just badly written and not salvageable. And while I agree with you that the location work is good, like it's well executed, I think the problem of, having all of the filming done around a coal mining town and having everyone being dirty and shabby is like, yeah, it's realistic, but it's drab, it's visually uninteresting, and it's just kind of grim, and it's just like there's no this for what this story is, for, three Time Lords bickering with each other, like, it feels like it should be more fun than this, but it's just kind of dreary and boring, and yeah, I was honestly surprised how much I disliked this on rewatching because it isn't good.
Yeah, I get that. I really do get where you're coming from.
Granted, yes.
Well, yeah, like, especially the bit about Perry, you're right, she is written as an utter moron in this. Like, just yeah, she cannot handle herself at all. Like, the Master even makes a big thing about how she was, like, a worthy rival in Planet of Fire, and then, like, obviously, the 6 months or whatever it's been with the Doctor have just made her crap. Um, I don't I really don't get that part of it at all. I do agree with you about everything looking a bit drab as well, like, but I guess, that is reasonable, that is sort of fitting with the location, but when you've picked a time and a place that don't look pretty, you're not gonna make it look pretty, and that coat sure as hell ain't gonna sort it out. Jimmy, talk to us about the Mark of the Rani.
Yeah, I definitely think I enjoyed this one more than you guys. It's not perfect by any means, but I think it works well for the most part. I mean, Perry isn't written as well for the most part, but at the start she does get that nice bit when they first arrive, and she's talking about the environment and the hedgerows and how the planet's being destroyed and whatever, and it feels like a return to the Pertwee era almost. But it's nice to give her a bit of personality. Like most of the time, she's just there to whine and argue, but this time she's actually has a point. She actually has opinions. She actually has personality. They make something of the botany thing. It's and she also gets a good moment later when with her cheeky line when the doctor's like, "Oh, how would you like to meet a genius?" And she's just sort of poking fun at him, saying that she thought she already had. And I thought that worked well, and that they're at least trying to build up the dynamic of the team warming to each other. Like they've left it a bit late, and it's definitely taken longer than it should and going slower than it should. But you can at least start to see the Six and Perry dynamics beginning to form, and you're beginning to see why she puts up with him almost. Um, but yeah, definitely she's not handled well for most of the story, but I think those moments make up for it a bit. Um, the Master and the Rani thing is, on one hand, I think it would have been nicer to have just the Rani and to develop her a bit more and build her up. But on the other hand, the Master and the Rani's bickering and arguing with each other, and the Rani just being pissed about his rivalry with the Doctor and so on, and it's getting in the way of her plans. It kind of works well as its own thing. So I mean, it could have been better, but you might have lost something that's fun in it. So it's, they probably did the right thing after all. And I'd also have to say that, sorry, where was my notes? Yeah, there is some sloppy stuff like the Doctor, as you say, he's got this reasonably good disguise from about above the knees, but then he's got the bright yellow trousers and the orange and green shoes, and it's just, yeah, it's a bit silly that they didn't just have him, put on a full disguise. And the Master disguising himself as a scarecrow is completely silly. It's like, why, like, okay, you wanted to see Doctor arrive or whatever. Why couldn't you just hide somewhere normally? I mean, I suppose you could at least say that Anthony Ainley's performance was outstanding in his field. But yeah, it is a bit ridiculous. It is a bit ridiculous. And I do like the Rani's dynamic with the Master and the Doctor, though, and the bickering. And I also have to say, I was really surprised when the Rani made her comment about how I've done this before in the Trojan Wars, and it's like, I'm surprised Big Finish hasn't jumped on that with Vicky, Vicky and the Rani story. But yeah, and as
Be careful, Jimmy. They have ears everywhere.
I know. But yeah, I also think Master's smug mind about style not being a new characteristic of the new Doctor was pretty good. But one bit of the sort of bickering that I didn't like was when the Master and the Rani are talking about, maybe we can do this scheme on Perry, and the Doctor's reaction is about, how horrible it would be to have a hyperactive Perry. And it's just like, come on, we're building up the dynamic. We're making the team start to look like they actually care about each other. And there you have the Doctor being more worried about Perry being annoying than her being in danger. It's just so frustrating. And the tree mines are ridiculous. That was just such a weird thing to pull. And, well, a lot of the Pip and Jane dialogue gets a bit over the top and sort of, trying to be too wordy. It's also ridiculous when they go to the opposite extreme, and the Master had that line about that crack-brained freak. Like, what? That crack-brained freak? You couldn't have come up with better than that? And the bit at the end about Perry and the Doctor, what are you doing there? I'll argue mainly. And it's like, okay, I know you're poking fun at yourselves, but come on, that's not how you want to end things. One other positive thing I will say, though, is I loved the Rani's TARDIS exterior. It's so much better than the pyramid thing that they did in Time and the Rani later. The exterior here is actually pretty cool, and I liked the design of it. It definitely doesn't blend in with its environment in the bottom of the mining pit, but it looks cool. So there is that at least. So yeah, I mean, it's far from perfect and it's got a lot of faults, but overall, I definitely enjoyed this one a lot more than I think either of you did, and definitely more than I have on previous watches.
You did just remind me of the damn tree, which, oh God, I'll stop.
The tree won't hurt you.
Yeah, no shit.
It is one of the most wooden performances in the classic series.
Oh my God.
Oh, and I thought mine was bad. Oh.
And that's before he steps on the landmine. Yeah, I don't know. It is a bit of a shoddy story, but I do like it, and I like the character of the Rani, and I think whenever I put a Pip and Jane story on, I just kind of go, you know what? I am suspending all facets of me that sort of rate taste and good ideas, and I'm just here for the ride. Like let's just go with it. We're in Pip and Jane land now, and the rules are different. This is probably the least Pip and Jane story when you think about it, but it's got some moments. It's got some absolute moments. And yeah, the Rani's great. One thing I will say for this season, particularly so far, is casting has been excellent. Like, Syl is brilliantly cast, the Rani's brilliantly cast. Okay, it was season 21, but Lytton was brilliantly cast. In fact, there are a lot of really good performances, a lot of really good casting in Attack of the Cybermen. But I'm going to regret saying this moving on to like the second half of this season now, aren't I? I'm just thinking of some of the casting choices in the 3 stories we've got to come, and I'm sort of thinking, oh, maybe not so much casting choices, maybe performance choices, but that is a story for another day. So we will leave it there. We've covered half the season. We will cover the second half in the not too distant future, but I will, for now, say a huge thank you and goodbye to Greg.
We'll see you next time.
And a huge thank you and goodbye to Jimmy.
I guess I'll also have to make like a tree and leaf. See you next time.
Please end this.
No, Greg, we've not got to Time Lash yet. We can't end it before Time Lash, surely.
Okay, fair enough.
And we will be back to discuss Time Lash as well as other stories very soon. Goodbye now.